Okay, we are live. Hi everyone. So good to see everyone. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it, especially the people that are watching in Europe right now. I know that it's like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. for you guys. So thank you for coming. Also, thank you to everyone that is chatting at the moment in the chat. Great to see some of the regulars there. Yeah, so happy and excited for this live stream. Obviously, I have a guest right here on this side of me.
Wait, other way.
From the awesome account Elementary Chinese. And look, I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I just want to say that I have learned so much Chinese, so much about how to learn Chinese from Kuizhou. He's such an amazing resource. I couldn't speak more highly of this guy. So,
wow.
you, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Amy, you're so kind to have me on your channel. You guys, if you ever get a chance to go to one of her meetups, wherever she has them, go meet her in person. Amy is super cool, super chill. And my name is Kuizhou. In case you noticed, I am not Chinese. I did learn Chinese from zero, and I'm the creator of the channel Elementary Chinese, where I basically teach you how to learn real Chinese so you can communicate what you want and have fun. And I just want you to understand, have fun. Go for what you really want to learn Chinese and go for your dreams with it, and make sure you're having fun. If it ain't fun, quit doing it and have a lot more fun. So Elementary Chinese here on YouTube, they're on Instagram.
I'm also right now going to share the link to Kuizhou's channel on YouTube in the chat. So if you're interested in following Kuizhou, which everyone should do, go follow that link and you can get to his YouTube. But also Instagram is so nice. Like every day I open my Instagram and you have really funny content. Like some of your photos, there's one that's like when you have the reaction when you say ni hao to a Chinese person and everyone's like, whoa. I laughed so hard.
Yeah, that meme is crazy, but if anybody's been in China, you know, and Chinese people just flip because Chinese is hard. We shouldn't know that language, but you know, it's kind of nice. It's a nice ego stroking situation.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, moral of the story, everyone go and follow Elementary Chinese or Kuizhou on his various platforms. But I just wanted to say something before we get into things, because this is a one-on-one kind of chat. It's going to be hard for us to monitor the chat at all times. So if anyone has a question that they really, really want to ask Kuizhou or myself, send a super chat and we will drop everything and answer that right away. Otherwise, we'll do a little Q&A at the end for anyone who has questions. So yeah, that's that. And now let's get into the fun stuff. Kuizhou, I wanted to ask you, how did this whole Chinese journey start for you? Like, can you run us through from the beginning? When did you start? Why did you start learning Chinese?
Chinese, not elementary Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
It started... Wait, elementary Chinese or Chinese Chinese?
Chinese. Tell me about your Chinese journey.
So a lot of people are like, yeah, since I was little, I felt this calling to like Chinese people. Really what got me started is a French girl. Go figure. No joke. So I was working in Paris and I went on a date with a French girl because models. And the whole time she's talking about this African guy who was married to a Chinese wife. And apparently he was so cool because he spoke Chinese. And my younger mind thinking, okay, pretty French girl, Chinese. So after the date, unfortunately, there never was a second date, but I did go back to the job I was working in Paris and I bought a Chinese book because I was like, maybe Chinese can help me get French girls. It's like that subconscious, you know, and that's really what started it. And then when I went back to Seattle at the University of Washington, where I am from, and then went to university, I took Chinese. And that very next fall, I found myself in Beijing studying for 2 years. Yeah, intensive study. And I think you studied intensively in some sort of program in China too, right?
Yeah, I did. I studied, but that was by the time I had been learning for like 5 or 6 years, and I studied at Tsinghua in Beijing. Where did you go for your intensive language program?
Minzu Daxue, so Central University for Nationalities. We were very close, actually. I lived in Wudaoko in an apartment. Korean town, for you guys who haven't been to Beijing. Tsinghua is right by Wudaoko. Korean. It is in Wudaoko, right?
Yeah, it is. I would always, in a taxi, drive past your university and always be like, oh, but in that area,
not quite as prestigious as Tsinghua. That's a lot better university than mine, but that's where I was, for 2 years. So
awesome. So you started studying at university and then
Started
went to
in
China.
university. Yep, 1 year in university.
I have a very similar experience. I started studying Chinese at university, and I studied for 2 years at in university classes. And I don't know if you can relate to the feeling that I had, which was university classes are just not enough to give you a real grasp of the language. And I had been studying for 2 years before going to China and then realizing, wow, I don't know a single thing.
I completely relate to your struggle. If you guys have the GPA system, I just got really good grades in university. Went to China. I didn't even know that mainland China used simplified characters. I learned traditional characters first, those are the crazy complex one, guys.
Yeah.
And I got to Beijing. I couldn't read the signs. I didn't understand the taxi cab driver. There was fog everywhere. And I remember the second day, I'll tell you a story in a second after you tell me to tell it, Amy, but I was just so confused. And there's such a difference between what you learn in the books and how Chinese people were really talking. And this is kind of the origin story of elementary Chinese, but way back when, I was just, look, if you're studying in university, I was like you, but super frustrated because I was paying like college money. I was going to class to keep my scholarship, but then I would get out of class where all the fun was, and I couldn't communicate.
Yeah. I completely relate. And you kind of feel like, oh, look, I'm doing Chinese classes. I've been studying for 2 years. But then when you actually get to China and you realize you can't communicate, it's so frustrating. So I know for myself, there's so much that I would do differently if I could start my Chinese language journey again. And we'll go into that later. I have lots of questions about your advice in terms of, how to do it correctly for the people out there that might be watching, thinking about studying Chinese, who have just started studying Chinese. But yeah, that's super interesting. We have that shared experience. So after you spent 2 years in Beijing, what did you do then?
Well, I actually went back to the US and hung out for a bit. And then I finally moved to China for good in 2009. And I guess I didn't actually introduce why I teach Chinese or anything, but other than being the creator, you guys, of elementary Chinese, like, I'm a certified Chinese teacher in the US of A, and I've been coaching primarily expats, people who are not Chinese but live in China, how to learn Chinese. And most of them, if you can relate, have day jobs, either teaching English or working in other corporate places in Shanghai, Guangzhou. And their biggest struggle is, how do they learn in their free time? So they come to people like me, and I really specialize in coaching you, not just teaching you Chinese, but how to learn, because it's a big strategy and you never learn in class how to understand or what to do when you can't understand people in real life, which is everybody's struggle. Right, Amy?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Wow. So then that took you to kind of teaching Chinese. Where did you start teaching Chinese? Was it back in the US or like in China?
In China. So I guess fast forward from when I moved to China in 2009, like many folks, I taught English there full time. That's kind of where I had to develop quite a few techniques to maintain my Chinese, because imagine like 50 hours a day in English, and then it's like, I'm not even in China. By the time I get home, I'm tired. So I kind of developed just talking to people. I didn't develop it, actually. I just like to talk to people in the neighborhood. And I've been doing that ever since before I had elementary Chinese. But all that time, I've done so many things. I worked as a project manager in a touchscreen manufacturing factory. Actually, we made or manufactured touchscreens for iPhones, among other things.
In China or back in the States? Whoop. Have we lost elementary Chinese here? I think we might be having some. Oh, sorry, you just cut out for a second there.
Nope, I'm back here. Yep.
Just explain to people, actually, the reason why your Wi-Fi and the image isn't too clear right now is that where are you? Tell everyone where you are.
Due to the you-know-what, keeping us all inside, I am in Mexico. I go to Mexico with my wife and 2 kids back in January, to study some Spanish. And then we saw all the news, and so we decided, hooray, we're safe in Mexico. And then we realized we weren't so safe. And then China closed their borders, and now we're just here. I'm learning Spanish and hoping I can go home. I live in Tianjin, China right now, actually. So
yeah, such a lovely.
I have no Wi-Fi.
So you're using your neighbor's Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, I paid them 500 Mexican pesos a month, which is a little much, but yeah, so I can borrow their Wi-Fi. But yeah, so anyway, it's my jerry-rigged Wi-Fi.
Well, we can hear you perfectly. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the chat whether you can hear Kwejo perfectly. So hopefully we'll just continue with this chat. Yeah, the image may not be so great, but we can hear your words of wisdom, which is what's most important here.
Okay, cool.
So you live in Tianjin normally. Are you missing it? Are you missing being in China?
I super like Mexican culture because it's much closer to American culture. Like, and I'm from the US, but after being in China 10 years, yeah, I miss it. I mean, my whole home is there, and I'm used to living in China. Like, I do miss it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I miss it too. I can't wait to go back. And yeah, but at the moment, Australia has their borders very firmly closed. So it's not so much the problem of how I'd get in whenever the Chinese let us go in. But yeah, it's more about when I can get out of this country also. But I'm going to make the most of it. I'm planning to do a lot of travel here in Australia. So anyway,
Cool.
making the lemonade.
Let's meet up when we get back to China.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
like, when I'm getting back to travel, I'm going to be an absolute whirlwind. I want to go everywhere. I want to do everything. I just take nothing for granted anymore with this crazy traveling lifestyle. But yeah, it seems we have a lot in common at the moment. We want to be back in China, but we can't. But yeah, let's get to the meaty part of our class today, which is our live stream, which is our classroom segment. Teacher Kwejo here is going to give us some advice.
Cool. And you guys that are watching, stick around to the end, because right before we started the live stream, Amy and I came up with a nice surprise for you, which we'll be talking about a little later.
Yes, very, very keen for that. You guys do not want to miss it. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kwejo. I heard that you have a couple of stories that you want to share with us about learning Chinese and your journey to getting here.
I got off of the airplane, and probably my third day studying abroad in Beijing, because if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of positive and I'm a bit of an instigator. So I rallied my roommate, and we were going to go to shop at Carrefour, which is a French store chain, and we were going to get some stuff. Now, you have to know, like, I don't have a lot of hair at this point, but back then I had dreads.
Oh my God. Can you send me a photo?
Oh, I really want to. Oh geez. I had long dreads, and I can't type and talk, unfortunately, so I can't pull up a picture. Maybe I'll be able to do it. So I'm going into Carrefour, super happy, even though I couldn't read anything in Beijing because I learned the wrong kind of characters. I'm going up the escalator, those walking little ramps I never saw before going to China, and I'm looking for one very specific thing. So I head to where I think is the electronics section, and I start using my amazing Chinese. Oh, shout out to Chinese Black Olive. I see you there in the chat. And this chat is out of control, by the way. So I get to the electric section, the electronics section, and I start using my Chinese that I thought was good, which was horrible. And there's this circle forming around me of like Chinese nai-nais, grandmas, and their kids. And I used to do free riding, which is like downhill mountain biking. So I was a bit bigger, muscular, very handsome, and sweating in Carrefour, trying to say, well, I don't know if you guys in the chat even know, or you watching the replay, but like if I say 中国, that means, what does 中国mean?
China.
China, right? And so 美国 is?
America.
Right, America. And what's 电?
电, like,
电.
Like to
electricity, 电, right? So like I'm standing there, like holding up fists and going like, you can't even see, I'm like, 中国电, right? And 美国电. And for all you haters out there, 是的，我会讲中文，我这个口音是夸张的好不好? So 中国电, and I'm like 美国电, and I'm like pounding my fists together in the electronic section, trying to get them to understand what I need, right? And so after like 30 minutes of doing this, I'm dripping in sweat, my dreads are wet, my shirt is kind of like soaked, like I was at like a Michael Jackson concert and going crazy, fangirl, God rest his soul. And nothing is happening. And finally, I shift and I go to the wall. My friend can't really speak Chinese, so he's just blending into the crowd. There's like probably 3 or 4 Chinese people deep in a circle around me, just looking at me, being all crazy, trying to say like "Zhongguo Dian" and "Meiguo Dian" and pounding my fists together. I put my fist to the wall, to this outlet, and now I'm pointing at my fist and saying my fist is "Meiguo Dian" and the wall is "Zhongguo Dian," and I'm just like hitting the wall, bent over, no shame, and finally they look at me and they give me that hand. And I know you know what the hand is. What does the hand mean?
It means high five?
May. I wish it meant high five. Mayo. When you see the hand, like it frustrates us because we're like, huh. So they said they don't have it. And what I was looking for was a converter. And I had no idea what to say. And the reason I tell that story is because when you learn Chinese, you just have to go for it. It doesn't matter. Like, there's always the phase where you struggle through the gap between the words you know and how phrases are said, and you're struggling across that gap, hopefully not drowning, to get to the other side. And the other side is the way Chinese people actually say words. Some are different, and the way Chinese people actually communicate. And it's like, remember, the quicker you can say, forget what I learned, forget how I would express things in my native language, and just embrace how Chinese people communicate, because it's their culture, it's their language.
Very different.
The quicker you will get better. So
oh, that's a really good story, actually. I can really relate to that. So many times I'm trying to like communicate what I want, having to do the same thing. I sometimes think it would be interesting to just go back in time 6 years to me, like struggling around China, trying to say things, seeing just how much I've actually progressed. But I definitely think being in China helps with learning a bit more quickly, in that sense. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree, because you're forced, if you accept the challenge, you're forced to hear Chinese all day long, and as long as you get outside of your foreign bubble. Amy, on your Instagram, Blondie in China, I keep seeing you doing these 100 days of memories. You were doing martial arts at one point?
I was, actually. I was doing martial arts. It's a long, fun story. I never got super, super good, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Found myself
you were an actress.
Well, no, I did have like a brief stint where I was studying at this martial arts academy for actors in Beijing. I just happened to find myself in that spot, and one group needed a fill-in actress for this trailer, this kung fu movie trailer, and so I traveled to Gansu with them, and rolling off hills in the Gobi Desert, and they made me wear like these Wolverine claws. I was this badass kind of fighting. It was awesome. The movie never came to fruition, which, to be honest, I'm not too surprised about. It was kind of a wacky concept. But yeah, long story short, I did martial arts way back.
So cool. So before we keep going, anything could happen. And like you were in a movie, when I was in Beijing, I was at a club dancing way back when called...
Wait, were you in the club having a dance with your friends, or you were a club dancer? Like you were one of those...
I was not a go-go dancer in a club, but dancing with friends. Dancing with friends. Like, I love dancing.
I would love to hear stories of you wearing the little outfit.
No joke though, I went to one of these like electronic clubs where they had a bouncing floor, and there was a black dude in a cage with this white girl, and they were lowered from the ceiling, and he had on like, it was crazy. He had on like leopard print, like really tight underwear things, and she was in, the bustier or it was, but I wasn't doing that. So I'm dancing in the club. This Asian girl comes up and is dancing next to me. I say Asian because the music was so loud. I don't know, but she was Chinese, and so we're dancing and we're feeling it, and it's cool. It's a couple of nice songs, and I'm like, all right, because guys dancing in the club, I'm sure you get it. And she's like, you want to go outside and have a chat? And I'm like, okay, things are progressing here. We get outside. Turns out she's scouting for backup dancers for a
Oh my,
music video. So
oh,
I passed the audition and I got into the music video. And
oh my gosh.
I wish I remembered what this one was called, but at any rate, it's if you go to China, guys, you can very easily get your moment of fame.
Wow.
I
That's
see a
crazy.
super chat.
Oh yes, this is a super chat. This is our
Super
first
chat.
super chat of the day. Thank you so much for that super chat, Twan. I've realized I've been saying his name wrong all of this time. So thank you very much for that super chat. And if you have any questions, guys, make sure that you super chat them, and we'll just drop everything and answer them straight away. So you were a backup dancer, Kwejo, essentially. But seriously, only in China. It's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. I found the picture of me. I'm going to
Oh,
share my screen. Application window. There it
okay.
is.
Okay, let's see.
1, are you guys ready? 2, the dreads were long, but they weren't fierce. 3, there it is. That's me with my dreads. I thought they were pretty cute, actually. Like they were cool. I'm gonna take that picture away before people get bored looking at me with dreads. But do I look a little different?
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. I wish that your hair was still like that today. What a superstar.
Screen
Oh,
share off. Yeah, I had to graduate college and go into the real world where people. So actually, I wanted to go into investment banking, believe it or not, and take my Chinese and help an investment bank get into China. There was this whole portfolio thing that I wrote up, proposal, if you will. That is my
yeah.
son crying. And I realized, since working in Paris and being in China, people saw the hairs and they always wanted to buy drugs from me. So I kind of had to cut it.
Oh, wow, crazy. So you
Because,
had it, and now you're, how do you say it in Chinese? Guangtou.
光头我不是光头，头发很短。So
Oh,
yes, 光头 would be
okay.
bald.
So Guangtou means completely nothing, not even a
Yeah.
tiny millimeter of hair. But what would you call what you have right
I would say 很短 like 短 short and 很 like very so 头发很短 or 比较短。反
now?
正不
Okay,
是光头，我还有头发，你别这么说。
cool. Whatever you say, man. Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, some of the things you can only do in China. Crazy stuff. I am studying Chinese at the moment.
Yes,
I actually recently started getting back into studying Chinese in the last 3 months. So I came back to Australia, and, you know, in this lockdown period, I'm facing a lot of time at home that I don't know what I'm going to do with this time. And I decided early on, okay, it's been long enough. I really need to get back into studying Chinese. So I started studying, and I've been actually improving, and I've got a video coming out next week about my method that I've been using. But I thought that maybe you could help me out with what I could be doing better, and maybe help me like work through how I can get to where I want to be faster.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See that super chat，
Oh,
小小的打上，小小的打上一下你们俩，谢谢谢谢。
What does that mean, Kwejo?
Oh, 打上 like giving us a little bit of praise.
Akshan? Oh, thank
打
you.
上 Yeah,
Thank
da
you.
is like that all-purpose verb, and it normally means to hit, but you can put da before like any verb. I feel like, and
Yeah, it's a good one. My vocab these days is so on fire. Like, this is my vocab book, and every day I'm learning new vocab. So vocab is on fire. So I definitely have no trouble when it comes to collecting new vocabulary. Okay, my goal for Chinese at the moment is to, when I go back to China, be able to have more fluent conversations with natives and locals that are living there, and not stumble over my words so much, and thereby conduct better, more in-depth interviews for my videos. So that's my goal. Do you have any advice on what I can be doing better?
absolutely. Like I have this paid thing called the DIY Chinese community. And in there, what I do all day is coach on goals. Because ultimately, Amy, if your goal is too vague and too broad, then the steps to that goal, you can't figure it out. It's like if you don't have a specific target,
Yeah,
you will not hit it. So I'm going to ask you why. First of all, you said do interviews in Chinese.
Yeah.
Can we hone in on that? What kind of interviews, what kind of subject material are you doing interviews for?
So I make these videos on my YouTube channel, and one of the things I love most about making these videos is that I have a lot of interaction, and I try to, not have the information coming from my mouth all the time, have it coming from the mouths of people that live it and who really know what they're talking about. But sometimes I have the problem where, I'm not completely fluent in Chinese, and there are a lot of words that I'm stumbling over, and I want to be able to, my interview skills and the content that I get from that interview is limited by how I'm able to express myself and ask those questions. So really, I guess what I want is to just be able to get the information I want, and,
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that's a vocabulary issue or whether that's just a need to be practicing more spoken Chinese issue.
Well, I like where you're going. I like where you're going. So we're just narrowing it right down.
Yeah.
And this is what I would tell anyone, especially you guys that are watching and who are studying Chinese and don't live in China. Follow this same process for your own goals. Go from vague to specific. So, Amy, let's just take one very specific thing for you, which is you basically want to, in Chinese, be able to ask more questions during an interview, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's pretty specific. And then let's take the goal to the next step, which would be time. I teach this thing called SMART. It comes from the business world, but it stands for like specific, measurable, is it achievable, realistic, and time bound. And all that means is if you're going to make a goal, first set a time limit, because most of the work to achieve that goal actually happens like very near the end. Hello, college, cramming for exams. So how long do you want to give yourself, Amy, to achieve this goal of?
Well, I'll give it as long as it takes. Probably, okay, no, I need to be more specific, be less vague. I would like to be better by the time I next get back to China, which at this stage is looking like maybe late this year or early next year. So I give myself.
What's that? Yeah, I have from an official source. You'll be back in China in 2 months. We will be collaborating in July. So wow. Right next to me. You guys don't. I have the hookup. So 2 months.
Who's you?
Who's there?
Oh,
I can't tell you my information source. Come on.
So your kids.
No.
Inside information.
Okay, so 2 months, specific time deadline. 2 months, you will know how to ask questions in Chinese. Amy, let's get super specific. What is the kind of interview? What topic do you like to interview people about the most?
Cultural topics. Okay, one topic. Let's say history. History,
great. Yeah. So then here's what you would do. In English, choose 5 history questions. That's it. Really simple, right? You don't have to think of them in Chinese. Choose 5 history questions. When I advise people who are studying on their own, I always say, if you're studying, you should have a book, because the book gives you structure. You lack that. I lack that by myself. And then you also need to have an online resource that's very interesting. Why do you want to have an interesting online resource? Because Chinese is hard, and the goal here is to study day after day in a small chunk and build up a lot of consistency and get your motivation super high so that you don't give up. So pick something that's very interesting. That way, when it's very hard or you had a hard day at work, you can at least just go to that YouTube channel, watch that Chinese show, and just enjoy, right? Third thing is a Chinese person to study Chinese with. No brainer, but so many people that I help don't have a real life Chinese person. If you need resources, you can go to hinative.com to find.
Is that HI or HI?
hinative.com. There's Chinese books there. You can, if you were in China and you left, ask your Chinese WeChat friends.
Yep.
It is I like to have this cultural exchange and never feel dumb or stupid for asking a Chinese person to help you study. Like, it's the ultimate form of flattery. And actually, you should learn Chinese, because it's basically saying you appreciate the culture. Anyway, you could go to Hi Native, you could go to Hello Talk, it's another community. You could just go on Facebook and search learn Chinese groups, and you'll find tons of them with plenty of Chinese people. So Amy, the next step would then be for you to ask a Chinese person, what are take your 5 cultural questions and ask the Chinese person how to say those in Chinese.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Yeah, simple and really. So what I'm gathering from this this advice that you're giving me, it's like a 3-part type thing. You know, you have a book that gives you structure. You've got an online resource. For me, that would be like Chinese TV. At the moment, I'm really into watching TV shows as a way of learning. But I seem to only have one part of this 3-part kind of advice that you've given me. I have a book. I don't know what textbook I should be using. Like, I'd love to get some advice on that. Also, and I'm not really working on my spoken Chinese. So it's funny because my goal is to work on my spoken and conversational Chinese, but I'm not really addressing it. So definitely going to be using some of those resources that you gave me, the Hi Native and the Hello Talk.
So hold on a sec, if I may. So focus on your spoken Chinese. Your goal now is quite specific. You're going for 5 phrases, 5 questions about Chinese history. Obviously, make sure to be culturally sensitive, but your Chinese friend or the Chinese person you're studying with will help you with that. So then you just say, if in 2 months you need to memorize 5 phrases, make sure that your goal has a measurement element to it, meaning when you get to a specific date, you need to have somebody who you can prove to that you can actually ask 5 questions about Chinese culture. And then what else do you learn? You just kind of reverse engineer. If I ask a question about, say, and very easy one, what do Chinese people most love to do on Chinese New Year? Then I probably also need to learn some extra vocabulary about Chinese New Year. But that's okay, because I can just make a little list and then divide up the goal every day. And that's how you're going to get there.
Amazing. We have a super chat that's come through, a really good question. Could you help us answer this for us?
Sure. Well, thank you, Guy Freak. Big fan, both of you. Appreciate it. Could a Western college grad go about finding remote Chinese work? I'm going to need some clarification. Do you mean using Chinese to work remotely? Or do you mean... Probably?
Yeah. Could you clarify that for us, Guy Freak?
Right away, Guy Freak, I will say, if you speak English natively, look for a lot of the apps that are coming out of China, because those kind of companies will need people, sometimes in English, but very frequently also in languages like French and Spanish, to do what is called localization work, which is to take and make sure that the English or the French or the Spanish or the German in their app makes sense. Biggest example, TikTok. Now TikTok, you use it and it works great, right? But that is a Chinese company. And probably back in the beginning, to make sure that like TikTok Spanish and TikTok English, they hired people who spoke those languages natively to help localize it, to make sure the buttons made sense and all that. So if that's the work you're looking for, Guy Freak, do that. If you're looking to teach English. Amy, do you got anything else you would say?
Nope. I have no idea how someone would go about finding Chinese work remotely.
Straight to the websites. You Google Chinese apps. You know, like there's plenty. This is the technology boom, right? And then you go straight to their website. And I just saw one that said hiring, actually, but I can't remember it. What was it? I don't remember.
If you remember, I'll after this stream is done, I'll put it in the description below. So just text me when you do remember it, and I'll put it down below for people who are interested.
Cool.
All right. Well, I hope that answered your question, Guy Freak. Can I get your advice on what kind of... I also get this question a lot on my Instagram. People are asking me, what kind of textbooks should I be using? What do I look for in a good textbook? I have no idea. I haven't studied from textbooks in in a really long time since I was a beginner. So you creator on that one.
There's only 2 I recommend. Sorry if I don't pick your textbook. Sorry, but people in the chat will eat me alive. I don't care. There's 2.
Okay.
For 2 kinds of people. Number 1 is a textbook called Living Language Mandarin. It's yellow. I have reviewed it. Just look for it. You can see it. This textbook is for people who are studying on their own, self-studiers. And I love it because it's cheap, like for around, at the time of this video, $30-ish US dollars. It has novice, intermediate, and advanced all in this like set. And there's audio CDs, though. Who has a CD? Do you have a CD player? Yeah, but there's characters in there. So if you're studying on your own, Living Language Mandarin Chinese, good. It can take you far.
Fab.
If you have, self-study book. My favorite textbook is one called Integrated Chinese. It's expensive, but
I've heard of that.
You have it?
Yeah, I know. I've heard of it.
Okay, so it's expensive. It was developed by my university professor when I was there. It's in the 4th edition, and why I love it is because it is the most relevant textbook you will find, meaning it's up to date. It's 100% in color, and I like pretty things.
Wow. I find it also a lot easier to study Chinese when it's a pretty textbook. The HSK textbooks, oh my gosh, they kill me.
HSK, gotta love HSK. I'm so glad.
So you've given your 2 suggestions for those textbooks. Thank you so much for that. I have a question. Since we've mentioned HSK, I just want to go into a question that I had of my own. What are your thoughts on the HSK, both as a framework for self-study and also just in general? Your thoughts on the HSK in general?
Don't take it. Do not take it. Don't take it.
For people that are watching that don't know what the HSK is, it's basically the Chinese level test, 汉语水平考试. So it's very common that if you're in China, you'll be encouraged to take it. So please go on. You're saying don't take it. Why?
No. Okay. So here's my reason why.
Okay.
If you don't have a reason, then don't take it. And hear my heart here. I'm not hating on the HSK. It's a fine test. It's a proficiency test. It will measure your proficiency in Mandarin. But if you don't know your goal and you're just blindly saying, I'm going to take the HSK test, why? You have to answer that. Because like if you're a university student in China and you need an HSK level 4 or 5 to get into your undergraduate, or don't quote me, but graduate degree, then great, you need to take the HSK. If you are trying to go and work in China in a job that is not teaching English, and maybe you want extra visa points because it's easier to get a work visa, China has a point system and they will give you more points if you have a higher HSK level, great. If you're not one of those 2, maybe 3 situations, I can't think of why. And I don't want you to waste your precious time because like this day, like no matter what you believe, we only have this one day and so many hours. And so when you spend your time doing something and realize a year later that actually you didn't need to, then you start to lose motivation. And I want you to keep high motivation. So before you take the HSK or study for it, ask yourself, why do I need it? Do I really need it?
That's really good advice, because I was thinking when I was about to get back into studying Chinese 3 months ago, I was like, how am I going to go forward with doing that? I kind of had 2 options. One, I saw just watch Chinese TV shows and kind of really enjoy myself and learn from that, or get myself some HSK textbooks and kind of use that as a framework for self-study. But then I started thinking about like all those vocab lists and, you know, it kind of becomes learning because you have to, and rather than learning because you want to.
Yeah.
So you would recommend going to the textbooks that you suggested, the which are called the Living Language Mandarin and Integrated Chinese textbooks, before going to like an HSK kind of structure.
If I didn't absolutely know that I needed the HSK, I would choose a book to give me structure and, more importantly, a really fun online resource. Because if you're not having fun, then you won't make it past 6 months. Because as I see in the chat, Chinese is hard. One guy's like, I'm scared to speak Chinese because I always get the words completely backwards. Like it's hard. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that kind of, yeah, I think it's so hard to work on that conversational and spoken Chinese until you, yeah, really have that Chinese friend that you can talk to, or you're in China and you can kind of, by trial and error, kind of get it sorted out.
I want to help folks, and Guy Freak, who did give the super chat, I've been looking, and he just said he was asking as somebody who wanted to go into remote work to get your foot in the water to one day hopefully move there.
So maybe he's talking about working as a teacher, an English teacher, maybe in remote regions, because I know there are a lot of job offers in that sphere.
Okay, so Guy Freak, really quickly, if you want to go to China, you can, as somebody who has your 4-year degree, need about 2 years of experience for teaching experience to get that visa. You can go and teach English there with a company like Career China, or what are some other ones? You can look up Totally China, like Totally, Totally China on Instagram. But it's pretty easy to go and teach English in China if you have that 4-year degree. And the caveat is you should be from, because it's teaching English, one like the native speaking English countries. Like, don't get upset. It's just the Chinese rules, like UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, and South Africa, I think, are the places that can very easily get visas to teach in China English if you have like 4-year degree and 2 years of experience.
I wanted to add something onto that.
Please.
Anyone is considering actually going ahead and wanting to teach English in China, just I've never done it myself, but I've heard some absolute horror stories from people that have taken jobs that are, you know, offering jobs, often companies that aren't so established, and they're promising you a job and they say, oh, you know, just get the tourist visa and we'll work it out when you get here. And then you're never really getting the right visa and you can get deported, and it's really, really serious. So if you are considering going and teaching English in China, make sure that the company you're going with is legit and they're going to be getting you a work visa, not a business visa, not a tourist visa. That's like, I've had some friends that have literally been imprisoned or deported. It's crazy.
It's bad. Amy, if you look into the private chat, I dropped a link in there. In the private chat, bit.ly, come to China. Disclaimer, it's an affiliate link because I do have a relationship with Career China. But what Amy just said is so true. Like, you have to trust your recruiter when you're going to teach English. And in this case, stick with the company. Like, she's putting the link into the chat, but like Career China, I've actually been to their headquarters. Good people. Yeah, like I've shot videos there. One of my recent videos, I interviewed a guy who does their video editing. Like, the point is I've met the team, and you go off of the vibe you feel, and they have a decent team. I'm not saying everything could be roses and daisies, but yeah, be careful who you go to China with if you're going to teach English there. Cool?
Yeah, that's great advice. And probably a lot of people that are interested in maybe teaching English in China. So I'm glad that we could address that question for hopefully some people that wanted to know that. I have another question, and it's about what are your thoughts on apps when learning Chinese? And it's kind of a two-part question. I want to know your thoughts about apps if you're a complete beginner thinking about starting to learn Chinese and looking to apps as a resource for teaching you from scratch. And then as the second part of the question, what are your thoughts on apps in general as someone who's studying Chinese? Do you have any advice? Sorry, it's a loaded I would love to hear your thoughts.
First of all, and this is a shameless but not so shameless plug, I took most of the Chinese apps. I don't know if you can see it on my phone.
Yep.
And I put them as posts on my elementary Chinese account. And the reason I did that, that's Duolingo app right there.
Yeah.
It's the parrot, the pigeon, whatever you call them, the bird. And then up there is Hello Chinese. That's another one, Chinese skill. Just go to elementary Chinese and look there. Because
is that on Instagram or
it's on Instagram?
Okay.
Sorry, it's It's on Instagram, right there,
Okay, great.
Elementary Chinese. The reason I say that is because those are resources, and I asked other Elementary Chinese fam who have already used the apps to leave their impression of the app, because there's like 6. And here's all I can say about apps. Apps are like books. You will learn some phrases, and when you get to real China or you talk to Chinese people, you realize that not all of the phrases make sense for how people usually communicate.
Yeah.
The biggest apps I've seen people talking about favorably would be Duolingo. That's the green app with the parrot thing. I see on my Instagram quite a few people talking favorably about Chinese Skill. That would be the app that has the little panda bear icon. And the other one is Hello Chinese.
Hello Chinese.
And Hello Chinese is that little Confucius-looking person in the middle.
My boyfriend uses Hello Chinese. He's learning at the moment. He's he's a beginner.
Yeah. And so pick one. Again, the problem if you study too many is actually, I got a little analogy for you. You ready?
Yep.
It's like the person who wants to lose weight, right? So if I want to lose weight, I'm going to Google, how do I get thin, lose weight? And I'm going to see a lot of results. And I'll see one, and it's the keto person. And they say, eat keto, only fats and all like super like delicious, rich food, right? But then the next result is like the vegan person, which says, save the animals, only eat vegetables and trees. And sorry, no offense, vegans, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the next result is like the person who does intermittent fasting, which means they'll say only eat after 10 a.m. and before 2 p.m. And the problem is all of the people who are either keto family, vegan family, or intermittent fasting, they all look.
Oh no, we lost you. Where are you? Hello?
Internet.
Oh, you're gonna have to say the last 15 to 20 seconds again. You cut out for a second there. Are you back? Okay, we seem to have we have some internet Wi-Fi issues. Do you want to try, you are back? Do you want to try maybe oh, now your image is perfect.
Cool.
Can you please say the last 2 seconds all over again?
Right. The whole thing I was saying, don't study with too many Chinese apps. It's like you're trying to lose weight. You see the keto results, you see the intermittent fasting, all look really good. All the people look super good. And you're just like, well, I'm just not you, me. I'm just fat and confused, right? And that's the thing. If you try to do all these Chinese apps, some might contradict the other. It's hard to get progress in one. And then you don't get that consistency and motivation. And so then your Chinese never improves. Just pick one.
Okay, so your advice is you're faced with this wealth of apps, so choose one, stick with one. My question to you now is, if you're a complete beginner, is it appropriate for you to be using, you've frozen at a really funny time, by the way. Sorry. Yeah, can you hear me, by the way? Are you still there? Okay, I think we have lost Quajo. I think we might remove him from the stream and then add him back in again to, let's see what happens here. Okay, apologies, people. Just some minor technical issues. Oh, there you are. You're back. I'm sorry.
The Wi-Fi. No, it's not your fault. It's the Wi-Fi is horrible. These walls are super thick. It's kind of dark outside. I could run outside. It would be a lot better connection right out there.
Oh dear. No, all good, all good. Glad to have you back. So I was just clarifying what you were just saying then. So oopsies. So you just said a focus on one app, not all of them. And then my follow-up question was, is it appropriate if you're a beginner learner to start learning Chinese from scratch in an app? For me, my personal opinion would definitely be find a tutor or someone who knows how to teach you the language, because when I started Chinese, my first year learning Chinese at university, it was really actually a little bit dodgy because their Chinese teacher just resigned. And instead of getting a new Chinese teacher in, they got the Chinese history professor at my university to just teach us Chinese. And like, yes, the history professor can speak Chinese, but I think there's a big difference between speaking Chinese and be able to teach Chinese. So would you agree that the best way to actually start off from the scratch is to have some kind of more formal classroom environment? Or what are your tips for those beginners out there that are wanting to start learn Chinese but just don't know where to start?
Look, if you're a beginner and you have the money, as much as I like just everyday life Chinese, yeah, a class will give you the structure to give you a foundation, and then you can learn and build a very high building in the way you want. If you're short on money, get a book and find a Chinese person that can help you. And the quickest way to go forward is to be consistent with your book or your app, but make sure to ask the Chinese person, is this how Chinese people say it? Or make sure that you don't just do 16 levels on your app. You're like, yeah, I can speak Chinese. Always try to use the Chinese that you're learning with a real life or virtual Chinese friend. That way you don't spend too much time learning the wrong kind of communication, but you learn the right way. There's so many Chinese people. Chinese people are super nice. I'm loving BBB2 right here. Like, I'm cracking up. Casting spells and everything. This is out of control. Super chat, Arthur.
Yes. Really good question. Is it important to learn both reading and speaking? I personally would say reading Chinese has been a huge help to me. In the beginning, it kind of felt like a really big struggle. Oh, I've got to memorize all these characters. Why can't I just learn to speak? But if you are planning on living in China, reading Chinese is such a help. Like, you can read street signs, you know where the bathrooms are, you can use the Chinese apps to order yourself some takeout, you can use Taobao. What are your thoughts on this, Kojo? Would you suggest people learn reading as well as speaking?
In the beginning, irregardless of culture, and would say only learn what you absolutely need to learn in the beginning. So, Arthur, if you are in China, then you need speaking. I say you always need speaking because communicating with people in a foreign language is very fulfilling. But to talk about reading, here's the thing. Arthur, you look like you're not a college student, like neither of us is, all right? If you don't have all the time in the world, then you have to be super narrowly focused on the one part of Chinese that you absolutely need, because then you'll use it and you'll feel happier about it because you're getting the fulfillment of, oh, I can use what I learn. In that case, Arthur, if that is you and you're super busy and you don't need to read, then don't learn a single character. And if you're in the chat and you're upset, I don't care. Because the point of learning Chinese is to be able to learn for the long term. And too many people try to do too much, right, Amy? And then they give up. And I don't want you, if you're watching, I don't want you to learn Chinese for 6 months and then stop. I want you to learn Chinese for 1 year, 2 year, and get to the deep, fulfilling parts of the culture and meeting and communicating with people. And the only way you can do that is to be very focused with what you learn first. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I think I gave my advice that was from my perspective. Like, I would suggest people learn reading because for me, reading is very important in China, being able to text to my Chinese friends, to be able to read the news or to see a sign and know what it's saying. For me, that's extremely, extremely useful. But that might not be very, very useful for everyone. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Figure out your and go for how it's easiest to learn.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn reading anytime. Like, if you just learn pinyin and how to communicate really well, you do that for half a year, you're excited, you're happy because you can talk to the Chinese people in your country. I mean, at that point, start reading. If you have the time, read right away.
super hard, like going back a year or two into learning Chinese and learning the characters. Like for me, as I mentioned, I had a really not bad, I'm not going to call her a bad professor, but it could have been better in terms of how I started my Chinese language journey. She never stressed the importance of tones. So I didn't realize that tones were so important, and I was there putting everything in fourth tone. No one understood me. Oops. And going back in time and learning tones from literally the beginning, like "wo," "ni," like it was crazy. So do you think it's okay to go back to the beginning after you've been studying for 2 years and then learn characters? Like, is that going to work?
I would not wait 2 years to learn characters.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably learn characters if I was doing it by myself.
Okay.
After the first, say, if I had very limited time, I would learn characters after, say, like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Because there's so much history, culture. You need characters to be in China. Like, here's a trick. If you live in China already and you need to know characters and you want to be efficient, then what I tell people all the time that I coach who are paying me money, so I want to make sure they get the quickest result, is 2 things. We're creatures of habit. So if you finish your day job in China, you live in the same spot. You usually go to the same metro station to go home, or you go the same routes to go to see your friends or to go to eat. So pay attention to the characters that you see most often. Take out your phone, take a picture of those, start learning them. If you don't know how to type pinyin, send it to your Chinese friend and say, please, I know this could take mafan ni, right? And ask them to help you a little bit, but be very efficient and learn the characters you see the most often, or the ones that you need the most. So if you like vegan food and you found a vegan restaurant and you want to read that menu, then start taking pictures and learning those characters right away.
Yeah.
Cool.
Something you said just then I thought was really useful. When we met up in China, it was months ago now when we were last in China. I remember we were doing working at stores and in Starbucks, and you're always asking people for advice. You go up to anyone and you'll just be like, hey, can you help me how to say this character? And every single time I see it, either on your channel or when it was in person, everyone is so happy to help. And I think for myself, when I first was in China, I was really scared to try out my Chinese, to ask people for help. But I think a really useful tip for people that are in China at the moment or who have Chinese friends is probably 9.5 times out of 10, if you ask for advice or you ask for help, people are going to be really happy to give that to you. And don't be scared about starting a conversation with the guy at Starbucks or your taxi driver. So I think that's really great how you do that and you show that on your channel, just to show, you can meet some really cool people just wherever you go, and it never has to be nice and kind.
It's very fulfilling indeed. Amy, you said we should help the beginners. Biggest advice for beginners?
Yes.
Biggest advice for intermediate people. Yep. Biggest advice for you advanced folks. Shout out to you advanced folks. But first, the surprise that we said we had.
Before we do it, can I ask you to maybe turn off the stream and rejoin the stream, because your Wi-Fi is just a little bit shaky, and I just want to make sure that people can hear you super crystal clear when we get into this.
Oh, please.
Hello, everyone. It's the Amy Show. Okay, just waiting for Quadro to come back in. How great is this t-shirt? At the end of this stream, by the way, we are going to be answering questions. So if you've got some questions, you can either ask them now or ask them at the end. I'm going to get a few different pieces of advice from Quadro before we get into that. That's better. Yes, I think it's better. Yes.
Is it better? I hope it's better.
Yes, I can hear you and I can pretty much see you. Yes.
Okay. Pretty much see me? I do have a darker complexion.
No, that's not what I said.
Look, I literally have a light bulb right here. So like I'm trying to get closer
Wow.
to the light so you guys can see the contours of my face.
If people were at the beginning of the stream, Quajo is actually in Mexico using his neighbor's Wi-Fi to get onto this stream. But yeah, if that, just letting you guys know that. Welcome back, Quajo. Please continue what you were saying earlier about the exciting thing we have to offer people on this live stream today.
You guys, if you didn't see the beginning, I've been coaching people how to learn Chinese, not just teaching them the language, but giving them the strategies. Like I walked Amy through setting her goal. And literally what I do is I take you, if you are self-studying Chinese, especially if you're outside of China, you're frustrated because you don't have progress. There's so many resources. You're like, I'm just scrambling blindly along. I don't know how to go from beginning to intermediate. I can't achieve my goals. I take you to making consistent progress. And I do that inside of a group that is paid. You get accountability in my structure. You get weekly coaching with me to help you make your goals happen and then get that excitement, fulfillment, and even open up the opportunities that you hoped to open up. Like this girl, Carly, who's in my group, and she is from New York. And she, Carly, if you're watching, hey, I'm so happy to help you out. But she always felt like she wanted to go to China, but she was struggling with studying. And because she couldn't improve her Chinese, her China dream was just further and further away, because why would you go to China without Chinese? Yeah. So I helped her. And what Amy and I have for you is there actually is at the link elementarychinese.com/Amy.
I will send that in the chat now. So
in the private chat, so you can send it in there. There's a lifetime membership. There's only 30 spots, so the first 30 of you, and then it's gone. But it's a lifetime membership to a membership that otherwise costs $29 a month. And what Amy and I are going to do is, if you sign up through that link, then we will also do a special session with you. Hour and a half. We'll answer your questions, but it would be what both of us would do if we had to start over again from zero in order to learn the fastest Chinese in the most efficient way, plus AMA, Ask Me Anything. But yeah, it's called the DIY Chinese Community, and we're just giving you accountability, helping you set goals, and walking you through the process of achieving those goals.
It sounds awesome. I've heard some really great feedback about your courses. So everyone, go use that link. I'll send it again in the chat now. It took me a couple of tries to get that link right. So now it should be working. So go to that and you can check it out. And I think we're going to be offering like an hour and a half Zoom call for people that do join. Like what we're going to do?
It's what we're going to do. It's if we could go back and talk to our past selves and have our past selves forget all the mistakes and just do all the things that worked so they could go quicker. That's what we'll do. Sorry, your replay fam is probably over. If you're watching the replay, it's gone. I'm sorry. You're watching live? Thanks for watching live.
Awesome. We have a super chat from Ariana, and she just has a question saying, what should my goal and time limit be? I guess it's kind of hard to answer that without knowing. I think the goal has to come from yourself, right? It's not something that someone can tell you.
But I can tell you specific. Ariana, make it specific. You have to ask yourself, why do you want to learn Chinese, right? And then once you have your why written down, make sure it's a very powerful why. It's something deep here. Okay. And then what happens is, I just saw you in the chat. You said, can I sign up for the monthly plan? You're going to have to find me on Instagram and DM me. So you ask your why. And then, Ariana, you look at your 4 goals or your 4 language areas: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And you decide, what do you actually specifically want to do inside of each of those goals? Then you pick one. And within that one area, say if it's only reading, then you get super specific on what you want to be able to read, and then you set a timeline. Don't give yourself forever, Ariana. Like maybe set a 2-week timeline. and then you make your goal really realistic. What could you accomplish in 2 weeks if you studied 10 minutes a day? And then you just take that very specific goal and you divide it up, and then you'll have the answer to your question. Hope that helps.
Awesome. Thank you so much for helping me answer that. I'll just take that off the screen now. We mentioned the last question that I had for you and that I asked you before we started this chat was, what would be your biggest piece of advice for beginners, the biggest piece of advice for intermediate learners, and your biggest piece of advice for advanced learners? And after we do that question, we're going to go into a Q&A segment and answer your guys' questions in the chat. So please launch on in.
Cool. Beginners.
Yeah.
If you are a beginner, what's a beginner, Amy? Somebody who studied less than...
I would call myself intermediate. So I think anyone...
Advanced.
No, I would say advanced is someone who can have a completely fluent conversation in Chinese, no stumbling, pretty like confident in their language ability. Intermediate would be like, can communicate but stumbling, and there are words that you should know but you don't. That's me. And then would be pretty much like people who are within the first year or two of studying Chinese and learning the basics, like how to start studying, how to get those foundational building blocks. That's my definition.
Okay, fine. Then beginners, absolutely take as much time as you can in the first 3 weeks, month, and you must master your tones. Number one, if you can see my fingers, and your sounds. Do that as quickly and painfully as you can, because it's a foundation. All those super tall buildings have really deep foundations. And if you do not set that foundation, you'll never have the confidence that you're saying something right. And you'll never have the confidence that you're hearing something. You always second guess. Did they say this word or that word? I don't know, because I can't tell the difference between eng, and ang, and I don't know the tones right. Was the third tone? Was the second tone? And you need to have that confidence, beginners. Otherwise, I coach people. People pay me to coach them. And this is something that is very hard when you're in China and you don't know the tones and sounds. Other than that, beginners learn a lot of vocabulary in the beginning, because even if you cannot get a sentence the right way, if you know a lot of words, you can still communicate with very basic Chinese what you need. Would you agree, Amy?
I would completely agree. Really, really good tips. I love your analogy about the buildings.
It's that's how it is. Okay. So yeah, vocabulary and your foundation of tones. Intermediate people. Oh, and beginners, keep it very interesting. Don't do anything boring. Very, very interesting, so that you can ride your interest and your consistency and your high motivation, like higher and higher and higher, till you get to intermediate. Like intermediate folks, I would say the biggest thing for you is to move from what you think or how you think things are said to how they actually are said within the area that you care about the most. So if you're in China and you need day-to-day life stuff, then it's going to be day-to-day life stuff for you. If you're outside of China and you're intermediate, but you care more about, geez, I don't know. There was this girl, Camila, she's in one of my groups right now, and she said she wanted to read, and she liked fantasy novels, Harry Potter books. So I said, learn that vocabulary, find someone who likes that, who's Chinese, and talk to them about it. So intermediate, because now if you're intermediate, you've studied a few books, right, Amy? You've studied a book, maybe. You've finished a course. You know some basic to intermediate Chinese grammar, but can you really talk? It's one thing to know words and grammar. It's another thing to know how Chinese people say them. So you got to talk more intermediate people. So you need to really If you talk with more Chinese people, you can express yourself like them. You can ask them, oh, how do you say it? I learned like this, but is this, here's a good question you always ask a Chinese person. Is this how you would say it? How would you say this?
Yeah.
How is this most commonly said? Ask them, is this a 书面语? Is it the book language? Is it written language? Or is it 口语? You know, ask them things like, do Chinese people say this word often? Or should I forget about it? And then because Chinese people are really nice and they don't want to offend you or, you know, lose face or make you lose face, maybe they won't, you know, you have to ask many times. But ask them what is good, what is not good, what you need, what you don't need, and get rid of what you don't need. Intermediate. Cool?
Awesome. Perfect. On to advanced. What would you suggest?
Wow. Advanced? I would suggest read books, learn characters, read books that you, on subjects that you enjoy. Get the book, like literally, I get business books, so I like business in English, in Chinese. If I don't have time to read the whole book, I do read a chapter in Chinese, or first I'll read the chapter in English, then in Chinese, or if I just want to have fun, I'll just read it in Chinese. But advanced, you really need the written language. When you're advanced, you definitely need to read characters and understand more of the differences between how Chinese communicate in writing and the difference between speaking. Advanced peoples, you're going to look for fun TV shows and watch lots of them. I mean, the Chinese friends that I had that spoke the best English in the most natural way, because listen, if you're advanced, you can already communicate Chinese fine, but maybe not in the way, again, a Chinese person would. And you want to do things in a Chinese way, you have to watch a lot of media. Find an interesting TV show, binge watch. Have a good balance between watching and absorbing versus watching and learning. Because if you try to learn 80 new words in one 30-minute TV show, you will die and you will give up. So Amy, what else do you have to say? That's
all.
I got.
No, that's really great advice. And I think that'll be really useful to anyone that's watching, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced. You've got some tips there from the master of Mandarin learning here. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Now it's time to answer all of your questions out there, the people who are watching this. So if you have any questions, whether it's a super chat or not, send in your questions and we're going to highlight a few of them to answer. Shout out to Jay Music, who likes dim sum. I also love dim sum. Yep, me too, man. Me too.
Ooh, here's one. Who's the top Chinese YouTuber in the chat? Who's your top Chinese YouTuber? Do you like Anming? Shoot, I know her name, but Anming from Oriental Pearl. Do you like Lao Shu, 5500? Tall black dude speaking Chinese? Do you like Xiao Ma in New York?
Yes.
Do you like Amy? You better say you like Amy.
I hope they do. They're watching on my channel right now.
Autumn's right there. Autumn is in my current DIY Chinese group. Autumn Ratledge. I see her chat. How long did it take you guys to go from shout out Autumn? I'm so happy that you're still learning and going forward. There she is.
There we go.
In the group. She knows. She can tell you what's up. How long did it take you guys to go from beginner to intermediate to communicate decently? Amy, how long?
Oh my gosh, years. But not to say that you can't do it quicker. My Chinese language journey has been more of a, what do you call it, like a crawl than a sprint. So I wouldn't classify myself as actually intermediate after I started studying Chinese, and I actually really started making Chinese friends and chatting and communicating, and that only took time. There was no like special pill I could take to make me suddenly be able to improve my listening skills and stop. I think I could call myself intermediate when I stopped translating everything in my head first, and then I just was able to listen and they were saying for what they were saying. But that took a really long time. But when I was studying in the in the intensive language course at Tsinghua, I met people who were at my level after like a year and a half of intensive learning. And by that stage, I had been like 4 years.
What does intensive learning mean, Amy, for the people who are watching and don't really know? What does that mean? Explain your Tsinghua program so they understand.
Okay. So basically, okay, I would recommend this for anyone who wants to learn Chinese. All around China, pretty much at every Chinese university, they offer an intense language program. So the one that I did at Tsinghua University in Beijing, it essentially was 5 days a week of Chinese, 4 hours a day. You have midterm exams, you have end of term exams, you have, speaking classes, listening classes, reading classes. It really kind of shapes you and really pushes you a lot. So that was a really great experience. The one bad thing about an intensive language program is that you're studying with a whole group of foreigners. So you go in, you spend your 4 hours a day learning Chinese, but as soon as you leave class, it's only natural that you make friends out of the group that you're studying with. You just speak English. So it's almost like a 2-step forward, 1 step back type situation. But of course, there are ways around that. But yeah, sorry, it took a long time to answer that question.
It's okay. It makes sense.
That's an intensive language program.
I started outside of China. I did 1 year, and I would say, after 1 year of studying Chinese in the US, that very following year, I went to study intensive, which means you just said 4 hours a day, 5 days a week program in Beijing, and I started in level 3 out of 9, if that helps you. So I tested into 3rd out of 9 level, and that's mainly because, listen, Amy and I told you, if you go to elementarychinese.com/Amy, you can get into this DIY Chinese community lifetime membership. That's huge, because other people will be paying $29 a month. And we'll tell you what we would tell our past self. Look, I would tell my past self right now, who studied Chinese for a year at the University of Washington, there was Chinese people all around me who were international students. I didn't know any of them. I would tell my past self to talk to them while I was in my first Chinese class. Then I wouldn't have had to start in such a low level in Beijing. So if you do outside of China, maybe a year to 2 years to go from beginner to intermediate, but you can accelerate that if you find Chinese people to talk to.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Okay, let's go into our next question. I like to hear how accents differ. The question I was really worried about before going to China for my first time, because I had chosen for my first time in China to go to Shanghai for a year as an exchange student, and I was really worried going to Shanghai that there would be no Putonghua or Mandarin spoken on the streets. It would only be like the Shanghai dialect, and I wouldn't understand as much as if I had gone to Beijing. But I was fine, but there was definitely a different accent in Shanghai. Wait, I can't do it.
It just said, "Hi, Ashley and Autumn." keep going. I'm just messing around. Go.
But yeah, I would say that the accents differ a lot, and especially if you go to different regions in China, you go to Sichuan and they'll have a different kind of accent. Shanghai will have a different accent to the north and Beijing. So they do differ. But I feel like I got used to it pretty quickly. Like, I had studied a year in Shanghai, and that was kind of the accent I was most familiar with. And then I moved to Beijing, and for the first month or so, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? All this R at the end of every word, like Guamar, Gomer. Right. I was so confused. Chunar. But now I'd say the accent that I tend towards is that Beijing, that pure Mandarin. Not that I could call what I speak pure Mandarin, but what are your thoughts on this question?
Right behind that question is somebody says, "Oh, should I learn standard Mandarin?" Or people ask me all the time, "Should I learn the local dialect where I live?" So how much do accents differ? They differ a lot. A lot. If you are in Kunming, which is in the southwest of China, the accent is way different in Kunming, which I believe borders Vietnam. Maybe? Somebody help me out. Fact check me. Put it in the chat. What country does Kunming in the southwest of China border? But the accent there is way different from the accent.
There are many countries that it borders. Myanmar is one of them. Vietnam is another. Lao, I think there's a border crossing to Laos from China.
So the things that you have to understand is these accents come from people who were born in China but may have grown up speaking languages that are as different from Chinese as, like, say, Vietnamese is from Punjabi, right? And so it affects the accent. If you go to the Northwest in, like, Harbin, where they have those ice castles and everything, those accents are way different. So the accents can differ a lot, loose brie, but plenty of people, since education is in Mandarin, speak Mandarin, especially like everybody who's under, say, 40. So Mandarin, that'll be fine.
Yeah. I like this question a lot from Ariana. She asked, where should I choose to live, South or Northern China? She likes a lot of Southern towns and spicy food, but she wants to experience real Chinese culture and history and go to rural towns. What would you say to this, Quajo? What's your advice?
Well, you give me the hard question.
Okay, I'll answer it then.
No, you answer the next part, okay? I'll do a very quick answer. Look,
okay.
Ariana, every city in China is real China, first of all, okay? But I think what you mean is the difference between a big metropolitan, urbanized city versus a small one somewhere else. So Amy can tell you, but maybe pick two if you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or
vacation. When I went into, I think everyone, when they're thinking about studying in China, they face the same question, like, where should I go? Where should I study? What city should I choose? And, you know, I would have to say, when I first went to China, I'd never been to China before. I wasn't sure about what I would think of it, how I would like it. So I chose a big international city, which was Shanghai, just to be safe, you know. But I would definitely say that taking a risk and going somewhere, maybe not a first tier city, maybe going to, you know, not one of the major East Coast cities. Maybe you go to Chengdu. Actually, I don't know whether that's first tier or not. Chengdu is awesome.
First tier.
I would probably choose to study in Chengdu because it's such a cool city, such amazing food, and there is a large international community there, but not as much as you'll find in Shanghai and Beijing. And I do feel like if you go to not as big of an international city, you're gonna be able to push yourself more to learn the language. I actually had a lot of friends that came out of Harbin and they had lived there for a couple of years studying Chinese, and they came out with the best Mandarin because in Harbin they speak that, you know, that crisp that crisp Putonghua, and you know, there aren't as many international as big of an international community in Harbin as compared to Shanghai or Beijing. So yeah, I think it depends what you're after. If you're after, you know, a very social experience with other Westerners and other international students, go to Shanghai or Beijing. If you want to push yourself, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Everywhere is good. I don't even know. This is a hard question.
It's so first of all, shout out to Arthur Larson, who just signed up for like lifetime membership DIY Chinese community. Amy and I will see you in the Zoom call, and also Elizabeth Hall. I'm super honored. Like, I can't wait to help you guys out in there.
So excited. Yeah, Elizabeth is one of my long-time followers. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for clicking on that. I'm excited to chat with you in person on our Zoom call.
Very cool. And Amy, you're exactly right, Amy. It is hard to say where you want to live. Maybe you should share with them, or do they already know what cities you lived in? They don't know me. I lived in Xiamen.
Oh, cool.
Which is an island, a very small island right across the water from Taiwan. So we're looking South China on the East Coast, kind of Taiwan, you can find it. And then Xiamen is so tiny. Beautiful island, palm trees, beaches. And then I also lived in Tianjin, which is Tianjin. It's right next to Beijing, 2-hour car ride, 30-minute fast train. I love actually big cities. Me, I like big cities better than smaller cities.
Yeah.
So I like Tianjin, but the pollution in Tianjin, it can be like breathing on the inside of a vacuum cleaner sometimes.
No. I think I've
Sometimes.
been really lucky every time I've gone to Tianjin. The weather has been perfect, that no pollution. Sometimes. Yeah. Oh yeah, Tianjin's a beautiful city. I really like Tianjin. I have studied in Shanghai for a year. That was where I first lived in China. Shanghai is probably my favorite city in the world. I just really love that city for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And then I studied in Beijing for a year. And then probably the city most amount of time in, I'd say, is Shenzhen. And the more I go to Shenzhen, the more I love that city. But as you can tell, I've only really lived in big mega cities in China. But I do supplement that with, taking very frequent trips around China to rural parts of the country, which I love. So it kind of gives me the best of both worlds. But when it comes to actually choosing where you want to study, I guess it just really depends on what you want out of the experience. Yeah.
Let me speak to that really quick, and also shout out to Ariel, Amy.
I've lost you.
Oh, you have me?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 10 seconds for your Wi-Fi to recover. In the meantime, I'm just going to address this super chat. Thank you so much for your super chat, Rob. Actually, I'm also looking to study in Yangshuo at the Omeda Chinese Language Academy. They actually got in contact with me, and I was supposed to be there all of May this year to be studying there. And I'm really disappointed that couldn't come to fruition, obviously, because of the virus situation. But my thoughts are, as soon as I can get back to China, I'm going to go there. A great opportunity to learn Chinese and be surrounded with beautiful nature. I've also never been to Yangshuo or Guilin, which actually really frustrates me because there are tourists that come to China for like 2 weeks and they've seen something in China that I haven't. And I'm like, I pride myself on having been to quite some places in China and knowing that I've never been to this one place that so many people have. Anyway, that's a little pet peeve. But thank you so much for that super chat, Rob. And hopefully maybe one day I'll meet you in Omeda Chinese Language Academy. So how are you going there, Kwejo? How's your Wi-Fi?
My Wi-Fi is better.
I think so.
Does it work for you?
Yeah.
I was going to, you need to drop that link back in there, elementarychinese.com/Amy. Drop that back in here. And let me share this screen and show you. Can you see my screen? This is Carly.
Here we go.
This is Carly, who lived in the US. This is Carly. She was in the DIY Chinese Challenge, which is the same thing as the Chinese community. And if you look down there, she learned how to get specific in her study. And I honestly, yes, I'm a creator, okay? Yes, but I'm just in a unique position to experience and celebrate the progress that people are making. When she literally, you can read what she said, but she increased her skills so much. And to see her go from not studying consistently to studying consistently, and I could share so many little stories. I'll stop sharing, but I just wanted to tell you guys that it's really nice. It's not like you have to come into my program. No, as long as you're consistent with your own study, you choose something you really are passionate about, the more deeply you care about it, the more you can be passionate about it. Choose something exciting. Make sure that you don't try to do 45 minutes every day. Because here's psychology, right? After 20 days of studying consistently, your brain will be happy. Your brain does not care if you studied 45 minutes every day or just 5 minutes every day. Physiologically, the same endorphins you get and motivation is the exact same. So what I tell people, and what I want to tell you to do, is make your daily studying very small and easy. That way you can be consistent. And in a month from now, you will have bigger motivation. I won't say huge, but you'll be happier because you were consistent. So let's keep going, huh, Amy? Greg Potter, super chat.
Oh, thank you for your super chat, Greg. So generous of you. I would love to do a collab with An Ming. Her Chinese is absolutely amazing. As of now, I haven't had any contact with her, but maybe this afternoon I'll try reach out to her on email or Instagram, because a lot of people are asking me if I know her, if I would do a collab with her. I would love to. I'll collab with everyone. Love making new friends and meeting people, and her content is really cool as well. So,
I'm DMing her about you right now. I'm DMing her about you right now.
Yay! No, she sounds awesome, and I love the videos that she's making at the moment, all very entertaining. So if you haven't already checked her out, go and check out Oriental Pearl channel. Some really cool stuff out there. Us YouTubers have to support each other and give each other shout outs. So everyone, yeah, this is a fun community of YouTubers here. So yeah, of course I'd love to do a collab with her. Hopefully one day I'll be back in China and we can actually meet face to face. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where are we at? We're looking for questions in the chat.
I'm going to say let's take one more question and then we might say fare thee well. It's been an hour and a half and I want to let you get back to your family in Mexico.
Okay, cool.
What does one do on a Mexican night? It's what, 8:30 now for you? Like, are you getting ready to eat some mole? Like, what's the deal?
We're quarantined, so not much. Netflix, actually. I feel like Netflix is a swear word. Don't watch Netflix, study Chinese. But you know, watching movies on iTunes. We were taking salsa classes in Mexico, which was so fun.
I love salsa so much. I started doing salsa dancing when I first lived in China in Shanghai, and I used to go to this salsa dance club every Wednesday night, and it was like the funnest thing I ever did. And I made friends that taught me how to salsa. But yeah, actually, I might get into salsa dancing here in Sydney. Sorry, I completely cut you off there. I just got really excited about salsa. What else?
Yeah, that's cool.
What else are you doing? What else does one do in Mexico at the moment?
Look, you guys want to know like my favorite game? It's called Small World 2, super nerdy. It's on the iPad. We play that habitually, and it is intense. We've been playing this game for like 7 years.
Oh wow, 7 years.
6 years maybe, actually. In fact, we keep an older iPad around that we don't update just in case. But yeah, Small World 2. I go head to head. I go head to head with my wife Jamie on that, and we will destroy you all, but you can't play us because you're not fired. So anyway, a little nerdy.
Let's go. I can't even see any super. Would you see any questions that you'd like to answer? I think we've pretty much answered all the questions.
I don't know, but 韩国你怎么谈到欧洲福利好？这是我们还是别录了吧？ Like I don't get it's crazy
because you've been telling us all about this Chinese suggestions and advice. Can you give us a little bit of a chat in Chinese so people can just see how good your Chinese really is? 我们说中文吧。No， 不用说英文，我们用中文。我的中文退步呢，在墨西哥，你的中文退步了吗？还是？
我的中文讲得非常好，没有退步。
说真的？
没有。实在跟你们讲，一直从我到墨西哥的时候到现在呢，我中文确实有点退步。为什么呢？因为我现在在学墨西哥话吧，就是说墨西哥话就是西班牙语。然后我每天有个辅导老师，他是在 WhatsApp 里面教我怎么样用西班牙语沟通。所以呢，我可以跟你分享一个非常好的学外语的方法，那就是拿一本书，然后你找一个本地人，就是说一个会那个你在学的语言的，我现在有点紧张，我说不出来。就是你找一个会那种话的人，然后你读一次一本课文，或者反正你读那本书，然后你问你一些理解的那种问题，比如说你读了，然后你问你这个故事是关于什么，或者你刚才说的什么是什么意思，你让他问你，然后你就跟他慢慢说，慢慢解释，然后每次跟他说的时候，主要是问他词语的问题，然后说话习惯的问题， 比如说书里面是这么说的，不过中国人或者那个外国人，反正讲那种语言的人到底是怎么说，然后你就这样学习。反正我是这样学西班牙语，而且觉得挺不错的。
哇，太有意思了。Thank you so much for that.
No,
And
it's super hard to speak Chinese to a
no,
screen.
I know,
I can't. I
I know.
can't. I'm sorry, guys.
Really hard, but you guys will notice. I don't if you know Chinese, anyone who's watching, you'll notice how good Quajo's tones are. He just
No,
hits
it's
the tones right every time. And as if you've been following Quajo on Instagram on his account Elementary Chinese, you'll know he's the tone master. So if you're looking to make sure that you follow Quajo on Instagram Elementary Chinese. It's the best thing I did for my tone practice.
okay. Now you're exaggerating a little bit, a little bit.
No,
But,
man, I'm not exaggerating. I'm my tone king.
it's I do get a lot of DMs saying that the tone challenges in my Instagram stories do help you out, and
They do.
I just try to help you guys out. Like,
Yeah.
I've learned from zero. I've seen all the resources out there, and like, I just want you guys to speak Chinese. Like, I tell people one of the best decisions of my life was going to China and learning Chinese. Yeah, I know you could talk about plenty of bad things, but I'm a positive guy. Always focus on the good. Any country will have bad. Any language could be hard. I choose focus on the good. I've enjoyed it, you know, and I want you to enjoy it too.
Yeah, no, you're preaching my language.
Yeah.
Focus on the positives. There are always going to be negatives about everywhere and everything that you do. But, you know, especially in these crazy times, why focus on the negatives when you can choose to be happy? So on that note, I want to say a huge thank you to you for joining the live today. I've learned so much personally. So I hope that people watching this right now feel the same. If you guys in the chat could send like some kind of clapping hand emoji or like love heart emoji to Quajo right now.
Thank you.
Everyone, follow Quajo. I'm going to, 1 second, I'm going to send the link to his YouTube channel in the chat right now. So go follow him on Instagram. And yeah, let's do this again. How would you feel about that?
Let's do it. I'm happy. Like, you have, honestly, Amy, like, your Blondie in China fam, they are super nice. Like, I've been live before. Like, I'm looking in the chat. Like, you just, because you are good people, Amy, like, you attract good people. Like, I just want to say, like, shout out to you. Thank you guys for watching us even.
Yes.
And like, I mean, look, a white girl and a black guy talking about China, and oh my gosh, like, you guys are so kind. And like, I haven't even seen so much craziness in the chat. I just want to say that from me to you, like, you guys are cool. Amy, I had fun when we collabed. I want to do it again. Let's meet up live again.
100%. This has been super, super useful for me, and I'm sure a lot of people out there. This is meaningful, impactful content here in lockdown. So yeah, let's talk about how we can make this like a monthly thing maybe. And look, and thank you to everyone for watching, for commenting, for super chatting. Love you all very very much. Stay safe in Mexico, and say hi to your beautiful children and your lovely wife for me.
For sure. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Okay, I'm gonna end the broadcast now, guys. Have a safe day. Have a good day, but hopefully it's also safe. I'll see you next time, everyone.